So with this section here for DMA 50, we're going to be doing a combined section of 17 and 18 together. And a lot of these two sections, the material is going to be talking about a vertex and axis and symmetry. So in my Math Plus for viewing example, they walk through it by hand. So I want to kind of go through by hand, and then I can show you a technique to check your work using a calculator. A parabola is just a curve. Is either making like a little upside down frowny face or a smile. That's what it looks like, and its parabola is defined by x minus h in parentheses squared plus k. And just so you know, h and the k, so whatever numbers here, whatever numbers up here, actually makes the vertex. The vertex is going to be your peak, your maximum, or your minimum point on a parabola. So that means the highest point or the lowest point on a parabola. So looking at here, this example, the h, which is considered to be the x value in the ordered pair, what we probably want to do is, it probably easier to look at it is just changing the sign. So we see a -6, so when we put it into our vertex, it's actually going to be positive 6. And then over here, because there's a positive 2, we keep the same sign. So it's going to be 2 as our k. So the answer for this one is going to be 6 and 2. So just kind of look at this one here, change the sign. If this was a +6, so x plus 6, it'll be a -6 here. And then you keep the exact same symbol. If this was a minus, you put a 2 here. So keep that exactly the same. So change this one, keep this with the same. So as long as it's in this form here, always you can just always look at the h and look at the k, and that can determine what the vertex is going to be. The axis of symmetry is what that is just when you have your parabola, it's just a straight dotted line that's straight down through the center or the middle of your parabola. And that kind of makes the reflection kind of like. So it's just a dashed line straight down the middle, and your whatever the x is in the vertex is actually going to be what the axis of symmetry is. So if you can figure out what the vertex is, your answer for axis of symmetry is always going to be x equals. So remember, always put x in front of it. X equals 6 is be their answer for the axis of symmetry. If in my Math Plus, if you just write down the answer to be 6 without putting x equals, then they're going to mark it wrong. Because if you just put 6, my Math Plus thinking it's just a ordered pair or a dot. But if you put x equals 6, remember that one letter we talked about in this section for DMA 50, if you have one letter and it's an x, it's a vertical line going straight down through the graph. So this is the this is actually what the graph looks like. Here's our parabola. Our vertex is the lowest point that the graph changes direction. So here we're going down, 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 and then right where it switches direction, it goes up. That's considered to be the vertex. The axis of symmetry is just dotted line, dashed line, straight down the graph. And I'll show you how to graph all this come time for Math Plus. The first thing you want to do is always find the vertex, and then you can hit second and then graphs to go to the table and figure out another point to finish off what it actually looks like as far as a U shape. And then we go down the graph here and then draw a straight line right down the middle of it. So if we wanted to use the calculator to find the vertex, these are the steps we we're going to do. So we're just going to place this one here into y equals. We're going to hit zoom 6 to see what the graph looks like. Again, use zoom 0 if the numbers in the equation are huge, because you want your graph to fit it to what it should look like. But zoom 6 should be fine if the numbers are small or normal, not too big. Find out where the vertex is, and then we're going to hit second, trace, in 3 or 4. We hit 3 if the vertex is located at the bottom. So it looks like what we just had here. We hit 3 because it's the minimum, is at the bottom. If the graph was going in this direction, it'll be a maximum that we hit 4. So we're going to move the cursor to the middle, and then we're going to go 3 spots to the left, hit enter, go back to the middle. We're going to move the cursor 3 stops to the right, hit enter when it says right bound. We're going to bypass the word guess and it's going to give us what the vertex should be. So let's go ahead and try that out in our calculator. And if you see an E as a result as far as your answer, the answer is going to be 0 for your calculator. Sometimes the calculator doesn't tell you a definite like 0, 2, but for the vertex, it'll have like E raised to -13 or something. Just know that when you see the E, your answer is 0 for that particular number. So let's put this in the calculator. X minus 6 raised to 2 plus 2. So let's move up here. X minus 6 raised to 2 plus 2. So we put it into here for y equals. We're going to hit zoom 6. And this is what it looks like here. Remember, if it's down here on the bottom, it's going to be considered a minimum. So we hit second, then trace to go to count, and we're going to choose the minimum because it looks like that use a frowny face. If it was the other direction, we'll choose maximum before. So we're going to go down to 3. And down here, left bound. Notice we don't see the little blinking cursor because it's actually at y equals 38, which is way up here. So sometimes we got to move the cursor down so we can actually fit. So notice that numbers are going down. So this is where I can bring it down, and we should start to see it soon. Here it is. So left bound. So here's my vertex. Go anywhere left to it. So if this is my vertex, go over to left. So my direction says actually go somewhere to the vertex and then hit the cursor 1, 2, 3 to the left. That'll be fine. Hit enter. Let's go back to the vertex where we think it is. And we hit the cursor 3 times to the right. 1, 2, 3. That's all you need. And then when it says guess, don't worry about it. Just hit enter again to just ignore it or bypass it. And it goes right down to the middle of it. So the answer for this one is going to be 6 and 2, just like we just seen in the directions in the PowerPoint. 6, 2. So some examples of reading on what the graph should be. You see that it opens upward because there's an opening on the upward part of it. If it went the other direction, it'll be opening on the downward part of it. Vertex is down here again, -1, -4. Axis of symmetry, remember, is always what the x is as far as the vertex, and you have to put x equals -1. Put the x there. If you want to find out what the x-intercepts are, remember for the calculator, in the previous examples here, you will put for y2, 0. Zoom 6 to see what it looks like. So this is the first graph that's here. So how many times does this graph actually crosses or intersects the x? For this one here, it would be none. It doesn't cross it at all. So for my MathClass Plus, you put no intersections. But if it did, we'll hit second trace. We go down to number 5 for intersection. And then wherever it intersects this, so say if the graph looks like this, it intersects it here, go to your cursor, hit enter 3 times, 1, 2, 3, hit second trace, number 5 again, move your cursor onto the second part where they intersect at and hit enter 3 times. And that gives you the x-intercepts. The y-intercept is always going to be the last number in the equation, or whenever it crosses the y-axis here. So looking at our equation here, the equation is not provided for you, but the last equation in a parabola equation will be the answer for y equals the x-intercept, or you could just plug in 0 into the equation, solve it, and it should give you the answer of -3. That's how you find the y-intercept. All right, so let's do a couple of examples in my MathClass Plus. We're going to do number 17. So here is going to be the graph. So here is going to ask us to sketch it, draw the axis of symmetry, state the vertex, and give the axis of symmetry in our problem. So first of all, we need to graph it. In order to graph it, we need a vertex. So we already know, I'm looking at it, the vertex is going to be positive 5/2 and -2, because just looking at the h and k's is in that form. But if you need to look at the graph on the calculator just to walk through those steps again. Let's do that. So we have parentheses x minus 5 divided by 2 and squared, and it's going to be minus 2. Yeah, minus 2. So we're going to hit zoom 6. So this is what here. There's the opening up. We need to figure out what the vertex is. So remember, hit second, then trace. And because it's at the minimum, the vertex is at the minimum part of the parabola, we're going to hit number 3. Left bound. Remember, go to where you think the center is. It's just somewhere near it. So I think it's around right here. Hit it 3 times to the left. Enter. Now we want the right bound. So let's go to the right side. So just go anywhere to the right side. Now I said 3 times to the right, but if you actually went way up here, it still will provide you with the right answer still, because it goes right down to the middle for you. So here we notice the answer is going to be 2.5. So anytime you see this repeating, just go ahead and round it to 2.5. And 5 over 2 reduces to 2.5. So 5 divided by 2 is the 2.5 here. All right, so let's hit our graph. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the parabola button, because we know it's going to make that kind of a shape. Your first part has to be the vertex, and we already discovered it's going to be 2.5 and negative 2. So look in the top right hand corner, I see 2.5, negative 2, I click, and now I got to figure out where my next point is going to be. And it'll be helpful if you just go to the calculator and just hit second and then graph, and it provides you with a bunch of points. I would just go ahead and choose the easiest one. Obviously with small numbers, just don't choose 10 and 54, because that's not going to fit onto the graph on my MathBus Plus. So 4 and 0.225 looks good. So let's do 4 and 0.25 25. So 4 and 0.25. So that's my parabola. Remember, now I got to find the axis of symmetry. So I'm going to hit my line tool and make sure it has to be dashed, because if it's solid, they're going to mark it wrong. I go back to where the vertex was, 2.5 and negative 2, and make sure the line is straight up and down. So it doesn't matter where you put it at. You can put it down here, put it here. Just make sure it's just straight up and down. So that's my dash line going down to here for the axis of symmetry. Save, check answer. And we should be good to go with this problem. And then we move forward to writing an answer. Good. All right. So the next part is to take the vertex. So you can actually type in the parentheses and stuff, but you can just use this right down here. We're going to put in 2.5. Or you can put in 5 over 2. It would have both counted right. Negative 2 for the, oops, it's not in the box. So if it's not in the box, you got to redo it, because it's not going to like that. So make sure you're inside the box when you write the vertex in. And notice here, again, if you just put 2.5, it's going to mark it wrong. So remember, always put the what in front, that x equals in front of it. And I'm done with this problem. So let's move on to section 18 now. And just look at number 3 for that one. Or here we have a lot, the numbers are a little bit bigger, but like I said, it shouldn't matter with the problem. So let's do actually one with the viewing example. All right, so here's our big numbers here. Now, the viewing example kind of shows you how to factor and get it into that form that we discussed in the slides. This form here. but I'm not going to require you to do that. So because we have the technique of putting in our calculators to figure out the vertex, let's just stick with that way of doing it. So let's write down our problem, and we're going to go to our calculator, hit y equals, and we're going to do 49x squared minus 14x minus 8. So if I hit zoom 6, I'm thinking these numbers is probably too big for zoom 6 for the standard graph. Or actually, it did show up pretty decently. But if you just hit zoom 0 just to kind of see what it looks like, you can probably see a better shape of what the graph looks like. And if you need to, sometimes you have to zoom out or in. Zooming out helps out a lot when the graph looks really big, and it makes it like a perfect shape here. If you need to zoom out again, you just hit enter. You don't have to hit zoom and then go back get it. You can just actually hit enter and it zooms out again. But this is all we need now to figure out what the vertex is. So second trace, it's another minimum. So let's go to the left side. We're going to hit enter. Let's go to the right side. We're going to hit enter. Forget the guess, just hit enter again. And it shoots it down to the bottom here as 0.1428 and then -9. So let's actually see what the the graph wants you to write it as. So the answer for this one is actually 1/7. And I'm thinking if we do 1 divided by 7, and that's where the problem is. So if you need to, if you hit X, it actually brings it up for you. So looking at this again, we do second trace, minimum. Let's go to the left, enter, go to the right, enter, forget the guess, hit enter again. And if you get this kind of a weird decimal and it asks you to put it into a fraction form, just leave it right here in your calculator, this X here. You don't have to copy and paste it or anything like that or type it in. Just hit second mode and just hit the X button, and the calculator remembers what the previous X was in your calculator. And it puts it right here. Now this one here didn't change it to it, but for this particular one here, normally the calculator will actually change it if you hit math, enter, and it'll change it back to a fraction for you. If you have any questions or concerns about that, just feel free to give me a email or a text message, and I will help you out to transforming that into a fraction if it doesn't do it for you. But normally it does. So let's go back to the problem. So the question is, we're going to determine whether it opens upward or down. When we saw what the picture looks like, it opens upward. Finding the intercepts that you might have. So finding the intercepts, remember with the calculator, we have to go to y equals. And then in the second one, anytime you find the x intercepts, you have to put 0 here. So zoom 6. So we have two intersections, one here and one here. So we hit second trace the intersection, which is number 5. Let's go to the left side where they intersect at. Just get somewhere near it. Hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So our first answer is going to be negative 0.285. Hit second trace again. Go back to the intersection. This time we're going to go to the right side. Get it somewhere close to it and hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And this one answer is going to be 0.57, 14, such and such. So let's look at this one down here. And these actually the fractions again. So remember, just hit the X and then hit math, enter, and it should change it to 2/7 and 4/7 for you. The last number in the equation, when it asks for the y-intercept, the last number in the equation is going to be the y-intercept. So you put your 0 first, comma, and then -8 for the back part of it. If this was a +8, you just write 8, +8. So here, so the last number in the equation we're considered to be the y-intercept. So 0, comma, -8 would be the answer. And then we sketch it. So use these points that we have, then 0, -8. You need to always graph the vertex first to make your graph to solve these types of problems, and then draw your graph on with it. Here it didn't ask for the axis of symmetry, so you don't need to draw a dashed line down the middle. Just take the vertex and one other graph on one other ordered pair, and there's a lot of them that you can use. Just listing here. I would just use the answer that you just had in the problem that you found for your intersections. So you would use, this will be the vertex that you find first, and then you use your two intersections here to one of them to make it to fill out your what the U shape should look like for your parabola. All right, so just to kind of go through all this one last time, remember just to put the whole part in your calculator, figure out what the vertex is. Does it open upward or downward? Find the intercepts by putting in the 0 for the second one, and then doing your second trace, enter 3 times from both sides. And the vertex, I'm sorry, the y intersection is going to be the last number in the equation. So you put in the ordered pair 0, comma 15 over 2, and then graph the function. All right, so that concludes section 17 and 18 for this portion.